Good morning, Giants. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV. You might have dimples, but have you ever created hot pink ripples?
Was that poetry?
Yes, that's what I do. It's time to wake up the giant. Good morning, Giants. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV. I feel like the guy on BattleBots. If you've ever watched BattleBots, like introducing the little battles every time. Yeah,
It's BattleBot time.
it's BattleBot. That's probably copyrighted.
BattleBots.
It's going to be better than BattleBots today. It's going to be amazing.
It is.
Because there's more than one way to do things.
Skin a cat. That's what you wanted to say. We were just talking about how disturbing of a statement that is.
Yeah.
Who's skinning cats?
Yeah, don't skin cats these days.
It'll land you in jail.
Oh, good morning, Giants. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV. I'm Ryan Morris, co-creator of Wake Up with Giants TV, a tribe of giants and 12 journeys coaching. And I wrote a little book about kindness. It's a journey of riches. And Nicholas T. Smith wrote a giant freaking book called The Giants and the Smalls. There it is. Oh, my goodness.
All the way in the UK. Look at that.
You're a poet, too. And you didn't even know it. Oh, my gosh. And then because of all of that goodness, this is happening right now. We're going to create some hot pink ripples today. And I've been gone for like a week. And so, Nick, you might have to catch me up on the going ons in the world.
Yeah, I can jump in and do that real quick, and then
let's do it. Okay, yeah. you're gonna hit the big box. There you go.
The big box. So here's what we're looking for. We need 5 people, and I just did a post about this, who are seemingly good on the outside and a complete mess on the inside. And so what we're going to do is over 6 weeks through our SG program is help them break free from that. So we're going to look at all the non-conscious programming that's going on, create gentle awareness around it, navigate the emotions and really face those emotions, and really start to rebuild a foundation for a strong life so that your outside matches the inside. And that your ideal life starts to express from you, because a lot of people are stuck. They're frustrated. We know this because we've been there. And we know what it's like to go through that, and we know how to get out of it. So our 12 Journeys framework is unlike anything you've ever experienced. So if you know somebody that is struggling like that and could use this program, we are going to serve them powerfully over 6 weeks and really transform their life. So if that speaks to you, or you know somebody, DM us and we'll get them taken care of, get the information. So that starts on September 8th. At 11 a.m. So we did it at 11 a.m. MDT. So that gives our UK friends like Rebecca a chance to be a part of this, because that'll be your evening. Yeah. And so, yeah, awesome.
This time we're giving you permission to slide into our DMs.
Slide into my DMs. Right? The other thing is this book right here is we are striving to raise funds for the printing of that book. We used up all the funds to create the book. And now that it's print ready, if you want to buy a book on Amazon, the profits from that go to fulfillment on those that contributed toward the creation. So we could really use your help around that. You're even welcome to make a contribution, and we'll use that to print the books. But we are hot pink and ready to get these books out to you as soon as possible. So if you're wondering what's going on, it's been a year-long process getting this book in print. That's what's happening. We're in the process of raising funds to now print and send those to you. And so if you want to be a part of that, slide into our DMs right there. So that's another way to get into our DMs. I think that's it right now is go to Amazon and buy these books and Ryan's book. If you want to hold that back up, I'll put you on the big screen.
Yeah.
That book. Go get those.
This one's Facing Your Fears. Mine is upstairs, but what was yours called, Miss Rebecca Shannon?
Mine was called Elevate Your Life.
Beautiful.
And I'm doing another one. I'm doing another one called Unlocking Your Hidden Potential.
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
Well, let's introduce her so we
Can I, before you introduce me, can I say a couple, well, three things. One,
yeah, let's do
slide
it.
into the boys' DMs straight away for the program and the books, both of them.
Thank you.
Because these guys are, before they introduce me, they are awesome. I love them both. I've experienced both of them as friends and coaches and hanging out for the weekend with them. And if any of those things resonate with you, get in touch with these guys because they are freaking awesome.
Thank you. And we are committed to serving. So these programs are designed to help you break free, and that's what we're committed to. So really do that. Thank you, Rebecca. That was awesome. I'm going to introduce you now.
Okay.
Now we have a sense of you. But today we have the incredible guest who's going to inspire you with her unique approach to leadership and empowerment. I want you to meet Rebecca Shannon, a mother of 3 boys, a dynamic leadership coach, and the heart behind the trademark hot pink branding you can't miss. So Rebecca lives in a beautiful townhouse in North Kent, England, surrounded by nature's serenity, which perfectly complements her mindful and intuitive coaching style. With a holistic approach, Rebecca helps individuals align their inner world with their outer goals, ensuring they show up as their best selves in every aspect of life. Known as Source's Pink Angel and the Queen of Heart-Led Leadership, Rebecca is here to share her journey of creating a life full of purpose and passion, and how she's making hot pink ripples that sparkle and shine across the world. So please join me in welcoming Rebecca Shannon to the show.
Thank you.
I can hear the applause. Maybe we just need to do that, right?
Yeah. It was so loud, actually.
Let's see if we have the audience. Nope, it's just too far. Right. I found it. There are sounds on here.
It takes a second for them to get across the pond. It was just this echo, this wave of.
It just took a minute to get there. That's all. Rebecca, we love you first off, and just are so grateful to have you here. I know we had you scheduled earlier, had some conflicts, and got you back on the show. So I'm glad we're here. We're finally doing this. This is live, and so this isn't a pre-recorded session, but if somebody watches this in the future, it will be, so we won't lie about that. But we love to start with your journey. Our intention is to inspire in the viewer what's possible for them in your journey, in your story. Mm-hmm. And we really like to highlight, what you've been through, where you came from, who you thought you were at some point in your life, and how you transformed that and turned it into something else. And then we really love your philosophies. Like what is it that has you navigate life so powerfully? But we're going to go back to your journey first. Is when you began your journey, mm-hmm. Were you a hot pink angel, or was there something else there? Were you taught to be somebody and you had an awakening to, that's not really me? Can you give us the start point there?
Yeah, thank you, Nick. And thank you. It's so wonderful to be with you guys, but also to be here and live across the universe. With such a big audience, as I can tell.
Yes, broadcasting.
No, I've not always. Well, I'm gonna slow down and answer that question again. I have always been Source's Pink Angel. I moved away from there. From being young, I didn't have that terminology back then. That was created with a dear friend of all of ours, Mr. Steve Hardison. However, there was when I discovered that phrase, when that phrase came back into my life, it felt very familiar. And I think, we're all born absolutely perfect. We're all born to manifest ourselves in the world as the very best versions of ourselves. And as you said, unfortunately, as we grow up, we learn and we take on other people's views and opinions and perspectives, and that changes that for us, which is, a natural part of life. And it can have us feeling less than and feeling small and forgetting who we truly are. And, my story in that is no different to most people's. I didn't have an awful childhood. I had a very, very lovely childhood. I had, a loving family around me. And yet I still picked up along the way some ways of being that aren't truly me and that don't truly serve me. So I say that just because I think it's a coming home for me to who I am today, who you guys know and experience and see in the world now. Feels like a coming home rather than a creating something new.
Yeah.
Shedding a lot of those things that I picked up along the way through my life experience. So my journey, you know, like all of us, begins when we're children and we start learning these things and these limitations that we take on. Nick, you and I had an amazing conversation just after I'd become Source's Pink Angel, after I'd come back from Phoenix and being with Steve. And I was struggling a bit. You and I, before we came on today, was saying about sometimes when big shifts happen in our lives, life then shows up and kind of tests it all out on us, right? So I'd come back from Phoenix, come back from being with Steve, come back from creating Source's Pink Angel. And actually life kind of was bumping up against that a bit and testing it a little bit. And this is how powerfully Nick serves. He noticed in a comment I'd made on a post and said, look, do you want to jump on a call? And we had this conversation about that inner child that had, you know, been changed, influenced by her life. And you took me back to that little child, and I had two images in my mind. And funny enough, this is where Pink Angel kind of comes back as being, it was always there. I had two images in my mind that when you were guiding me through that, going back to who I truly was. One was my fierce protector, which I've never found the photo. I don't know whether you remember this conversation, Nick, but never found the photo. But I had in my mind this very young man.
I do remember. Yep.
8 years old, on the top of a mountain somewhere in Yorkshire in the UK, in, you know, jeans and a t-shirt and hiking boots, just like, you know, top of the world, literally. And I had this real like warrior stance going on. I still haven't found the picture, but I can see it in my mind's eye. And she'd become my very, you know, my fierce protector that protected me from whatever was going on in the world. And then the other one I had was me when I did ballet as a child, and I was the sugar plum fairy. And I can find that picture because I think I shared it with you. There's this cute little baby me, probably, again, I was probably, I don't know, maybe a bit younger than that, 6, 7, something like that, with a little pink tutu on and pink, you know, buns. And so it kind of took me back to, she was always there. It was a real, like, coming home for me when those things kind of collided. So yeah, I'm not sure I've answered your question.
No, you did. You did.
But I know that you will guide me if I don't. And you,
well, it triggers things. You know, it's like as you share, certain nudges come up, and I think this is where, you know, we just are finishing up our SG13, which is our 13th cohort of the SG program, and there's, you know, the people that are going through that program right now, they have these shifts. And my mind just goes to these ridiculous statements like, I took a big old shift, you know, like it's a shirt. There's a shirt in that. But in the SG program. But there's a transformation. Like when we really look at things, it's not like we create something new. We take from what was and what is. And Richard Paul Evans says that chaos is the mind of creation. And we take from that mind of creation, that chaos, and we create something from it. We transform it. We turn it from what it is into something else. And the first law of thermodynamics says that energy is not created or destroyed. It's just transformed. And so all of us are in this space of, I've got this life that was given to me, and that's the chaos. That's what I get to create from. That's my mind. And then we take that and we turn it into something. So when you say it's this familiar energy, I took what didn't work and I put that aside. I pulled what did work and I pulled that into it. And from that, I transformed and created what you see today. Can you speak a little more about that? What comes up as you hear that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess more of my journey. Journey through life from, you know, that young person that I was through, you know, teenage years where, you know, we discover all the things that we shouldn't discover when we're teenagers, you know, boys and drink and party and things like that. And then, you know, had a great time, went to university, had a great time, never really fulfilled on my potential, I don't think. You know, it wasn't bad, but it was never as perhaps good as it could be, but it was okay. Yeah. And, you know, fell into a career, which then became my career for 15 years, which was okay. And I did very well, worked in a big corporate in the UK. I was a project manager, worked with, you know, top leaders. And a lot of what I now have transformed into the work that I do now came from that time. You know, fell in and out of relationships during that time, and then, you know, got married, have 3 beautiful children, 3 beautiful boys. But somewhere in there, I lost myself. You know, I just lost who I was. Some of those relationships and some of those working environments were not bringing out the best in me. They weren't, they were, well, they just were. I don't really like to use the words like toxic and things like that, but they just weren't bringing out the best in me. They weren't where I wanted to be, really. They weren't who I truly was. And there's a beautiful story. I talk about pink of flamingos, which are quite are a bird that I kind of resonate with, where when mum flamingos have their babies, they lose their pinkness because they're giving all the nutrients and everything they normally get from the food that makes them pink to their babies. So flamingo mums kind of lose their pink, right? And that, I think, is kind of what happened to me. You know, I just lost who I truly was in becoming something for everybody else. And I learned at quite an early age to care more about others than I cared about myself. And it got to a stage where I was in a marriage that wasn't working. I was in a career that wasn't working. I had 3 beautiful children, and I didn't know how to not be in that life anymore. I didn't have the courage and the bravery to really stand up for myself and say, this isn't for me, and I want to create something new in my life. So what happened that led to the journey that I've been on since is that, you know, the marriage, don't distract me like that, Ra. The marriage, you know, didn't work out in the end. You know, he left because there was nothing left there. And I've been navigating that for the last 8 years, navigating becoming a single mum, navigating, unfortunately, what isn't a great relationship in separation, navigating financial stuff that comes with, you know, that, the kids and where we live and how we live and all that sort of thing. So that's all been going on over the last 8 years. At the point at which that happened, I stumbled across a self-development program that was run by an amazing lady called Joanna Martin. The organization is called One of Many, and it was an empowerment community for women. And they did great marketing, right? Which basically said, are you Superwoman? Are you trying to do everything at once? Are you trying to have a great job and, you know, look after children and do everything for everyone else? And are you feeling completely, you know, burnt out, right? Are you feeling like all your colors gone? I didn't quite use those terms, and I just read this and just was like, they're talking to me. This is me. Because I was running around trying to be everything to everyone, you know, to my husband, although he might not have seen it quite like that at the time or now. My kids, I was also trying to be the best, you know, corporate leader I could be. My father had been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and we'd moved him to live near us with my mum as well, which was not an easy journey to go on. And yeah, it just really spoke to where I was at, right? I was like, I can't keep doing this. I just can't keep doing it. So I signed up for one of their programs because I was like, yeah, this is what I need. And then they started licensing people to be coaches for them to deliver that program. So from kind of surviving to thriving was the theme of that. And it was a 12-week program to take you from surviving to thriving. And I did the program myself. And then I was like, yeah, I believe this is something I could do. I want to be a coach. I was already running my own business at that stage as a project management consultant. But I thought there was something that was calling me towards coaching and coaching other women and experiencing that journey for myself. So that was really the beginning of the journey that led me here to you guys today.
Yeah, wow.
And at the time, I love signs and synchronicities. I love magic and miracles.
What's
and
that?
At the time,
just kidding, we love it too.
And I found a book. I found a journal that I'd written maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 years before. And at the time I was making the decision, because at the time it was like very counterintuitive. I'm a single mum. I haven't got, you know, finances are tight. I'm already working part-time and bringing up 3 small children, you know, the father was always involved, but it was every other weekend. So most of it, you know, fell to me. I can't do this. It was a big investment financially. It was a big investment in time and energy. I was like, this is totally crazy. So my logical brain was talking me out of it. And then I opened a journal, like I said, that I'd written maybe eight years before. And I just opened it to the exact page that said, I want to be a coach. And I was like, okay,
wow,
I'll take that as a sign.
yeah.
And so that was the beginning of my journey. And that was, I went and did that. I licensed as a coach with them. And then my life as I knew it has completely transformed.
Yeah, and it was easy. Like everything was easy from there out. You know, it's like
Absolutely.
you see that message and you're like, cakewalk. Never had a challenge from there on, right?
Absolutely never had a challenge again. What didn't happen, Nick, was that I started that program. You know, I was going through the divorce, going through the separation. I got into another relationship, which was a repeat of every other relationship I've been in, which then crashed and burned, which almost derailed me. And then I went on a magical holiday to St. Lucia, which was pretty good, actually. I mean, you know, I'm trying to make this sound bad. It's not that bad. Amazing holiday to St. Lucia, where my sister was living at the time. Completed my certification exam for the coaching program. Passed, of course. Loved doing it. I did it online. Sat on a beach in St. Lucia and pressed send as I was looking out at this beautiful Caribbean sea. And then so I was all set, Nick. Like you say, I was all set. It was perfect. Everything was going to be absolutely fine from here on in. And so that was in the end of August, beginning of September, about this time. And
what year was that?
2018.
Okay.
And then my dad, who had Alzheimer's, we'd been in a home for several years by then. So got to October the 11th, and I get a call to say, your dad's at, final life stage. You need to be with, you need to come and be with him, which I was, which is one of the most incredible experiences of my life, actually being with my dad in his final, hours. That happened over a weekend, passed away on the 14th of October. So I was just about to launch my business. I had everything ready. It was all going to be my new chapter. And I didn't, because life threw that in my way.
Well, let's slow down here, because this is gold right here. When you step onto these paths, there's a movie, I think it's called The Christmas Story, the little kid that wants a BB gun, right, for Christmas. And he writes his story for the teacher, and he just pictures her saying A+++++ all the way around the room, and celebrates his amazing writing. And when we wake up and we have these moments where we just are crystal clear on our direction, that's how we imagine it. And then eventually he shoots his glasses, right, and it just goes south bad. And sometimes with these awakenings, there's this hope that brings of, I'm excited about the future and where this is going. And then there's the work that comes into it, which is all of the healing. Because when you step into that, your stuff comes up, situations come into your space that really test you, that you haven't experienced. Sometimes we think we're strong, and then something happens and we find out, holy crap, I could use some support here. The thing with our visions and dreams is that they give us a direction to aim for, but they don't resolve any of the past stuff that's still there. And that gets to be resolved for us to really step into that vision. And everything that's going to step into, like, bringing that to the surface is going to come into your space, everything.
Yeah.
And you're going to find out that you're ill-equipped, that you don't know what you're doing, that sometimes you don't want to get out of bed. And you've got to learn tools to navigate those. And many people give up right there. And that's where the real challenge comes in, is how did you navigate that? Because I know you, and we've had conversations around this. It's not like you just had this great vision and life got easy. It doesn't work that way. It seems that anything that needs to be resolved for you to accomplish that is going to show up for you to resolve. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. And I mean, my journey with my dad has been such a such a part of everything that's occurred since. I mean, you both know I talk about him as my, you know, my darling dad, my North Star. You know, he guides me constantly. And actually the most powerful part of my journey with my dad was his Alzheimer's journey. Because and you said something there about, you know, when something like this happens and you feel like, you know, you feel like you can't deal with it and you feel like you want to just stay in bed and all of that. Interestingly, my journey with my dad was the very thing that gave me the strength. Like really, it really gave me the strength for everything that's occurred since. Like absolutely everything. And it's one of the times in my life where I have advocated for myself more than anywhere else. It's like the importance of that journey with my dad was so strong that nothing was going to get in the way of it. Right. And I, you know, through my life, I've had to really learn about advocating for myself, as I said earlier, because it was always about other people. I've had to really learn how to set strong boundaries and still am, and don't always get it right. But with that journey with my dad, actually, it was the strongest I've ever felt and the most boundaried I've ever felt, in a loving way as well, because I'm quite good at doing really angry boundaries, but loving boundaries not so good at, right? Not so good at.
Yeah.
But so I want to explain a bit more about that.
Angry boundaries are fun for a minute sometimes, but they're usually not sustainable.
Ryan almost experienced my angry boundaries when he decided to leave the UK and go back to the USA. That's a whole other story.
I almost
Angry
couldn't
boundaries are like this.
Yeah, but yeah, grenade. Yeah, exactly, right. So, but the journey with my dad, because he'd been ill for some time. We got diagnosed with Alzheimer's. He went into a home at about the time he'd gone in as my marriage was breaking down, right? And actually it became, and I created it this way, and I didn't really have the terminology then about who we're being and creating. I didn't have that terminology, but I certainly was showing up that way. Was I created my journey with my dad to be something really special. He was in a home sort of 40 minutes away from where I live, on the coast, a lovely place called Westgate. And obviously it was quite hard to go and visit him. You know, by this time he had no idea who I was. He didn't have an idea who the kids were. He could be quite touchy and angry and all of this sort of stuff, right? But so I created this beautiful way of being with dad, which is I went and saw him a lot on my own as my marriage was, you know, I was on my own. My marriage was breaking down. He was my confidant. He was the one person that I could go and talk to who didn't have an opinion, who wasn't trying to fix anything, who wasn't trying to get me to do anything or not do anything. He just listened. He had absolutely no idea who I was, right, or what I was talking about, right? But he would just hold my hand with pure unconditional love, because there was always love when I was with my dad. And there was always love with my dad anyway. But he didn't need to know who I was. Like the logical part of his brain didn't need to be there for us to experience the love. So he became my sanctuary during that time, because I didn't really want everyone else's opinion and views and do this, don't do that, and you must do this. I just wanted to be heard, right, and loved for who I was and for what I was going through. So part of my journey with him was that for me. And then the other part of it was I wanted my children to continue having an experience of their grandfather. So we used to go, and, you know, they were young at that age. They were young back then. You know, my little one was a baby, really. He was only like 2, 3, 4 years old. But they used to come and we'd spend time with my dad, but then we'd go on the beach, you know. So we'd go to the beach, then we'd go and see granddad. Or there was a lovely little cinema in this little town. So we'd go and see granddad, we'd go and see a film. In the winter, there was a place you could get hot chocolates. So we'd go and get hot chocolates. You know, so I created this as being a really special time, even though it was, you know, hard for me and for the kids and heartbreaking in some ways. We created it. Again, I didn't have that terminology back then, that language back then, but we created it to be lovely. And I used to share. So I shared on Facebook at the time. I used to take pictures of the sea, pictures of me with my dad. And I created this journey with people. And it wasn't all hot pink ripples then. Some of it was, I found it really hard to be with my dad today. Some of it was, I loved being with my dad today. I just shared how it was. And I know even to this day, I still get messages from people who say, you have no idea how much that meant to me, because I'd already been on a journey with my mum or dad or someone I loved, and it really helped me see it differently. Or years later, they went on that journey and they still refer back to that time where I created this different way of being with something that is going to happen to all of us. We're all going to lose people we love.
Yeah.
So, and then it just gave me a strength. So when my dad did pass away, you know, obviously I was heartbroken, and I wanted him to be at peace, Nick. You know, I spent the last probably year that whenever I saw my dad, whenever I left, I'd say, Dad, I love you. We're all okay. Please go to sleep. You know, it's okay. We're all okay. And I think the timing of his death, I think he chose it very deliberately, because he knew that I was on the right journey, right? He knew that I had this thing, that I was going to create something in my future. So it doesn't surprise me now, knowing what I know now, that he passed away at that point, because he knew I was okay. He could see a shift in me. He could see that a different pathway was being, you know, created for me. My sister was back from St. Lucia in the country. So she'd been living abroad for, you know, a couple of years. So she was home. And my brother, so we were all with my dad in the last hours of his life. It was like he knew we were all okay, you know, and we were, and he, you know, I believe he chose when to go, and he didn't choose, although I was with him for the last weekend of his life, he actually chose to pass away when he was just with my brother. And I think that was deliberate as well. He didn't want his little girls to go through that pain, you know. So we were all around him, but at the moment he passed, he was with my brother. And from that point on, I mean, there were, you know, obviously difficult things to deal with, you know, when someone passes away, which I'd never had to deal with before. My husband was not particularly supportive at the time in his own way. He was dealing with the death of my father in his own way, and I didn't want him to be a part of it. So that caused problems. But again, I really strongly advocated for myself and my children. My children were incredible. My boys were just incredible at that time. Seeing them, you know, seeing me grieving, they were the most loving and supportive, you know, that they could be. So it actually created this beautiful bond with me and with my boys. And I just took some time out then, actually. I was so, and this, I think something, and Nick, I know you will articulate this well for me. I was so loved and supported and cared for at that time. I was running my business at the time. It wasn't a coaching business, because I was about to pivot into that. I was working for a company as a contractor, and they could not have supported me more in that time. They loved on me in the way that they could, you know, take as much time as you want. We will continue to pay you. You don't need to be here. And I was about to go live with the project. That's the other thing my dad did. The Sunday he passed away, Monday, we were going live with a project that I've been working on for 18 months. And I had to ring my boss and go, I'm really sorry. I ain't going to be there. And all I got was love and support.
See, that's incredible to me. You know, and really tying this back into what, you know, what you've created here, you hit on a phrase that I've held on to as you've talked, which was even though. And even though, you know, all this is going on, even though, and this is where, you know, creating the hot pink ripples, and I really want to tie into this, is you have this environment that is, you know, somewhat supportive and safe, but many people don't have that. They don't have a job. You know, I remember when I told my company what was going on, the manager said, not our issue, you need to deal with it. And really had no space for what I was going through. So my grieving wasn't allowed, any of that. But even though, right, even though that was going on, even though there is a positive space, even though there's a negative space, we still have a chance to choose how we're going to show up in that environment. And creating hot pink ripples, I would imagine, and you'll help clarify this, is about creating an impact in the world, even though, right? And I think that's such a powerful statement. I hope you hang on to this, because this could really serve your business and your clients, is that, you know, I see people that hold on to their traumas, and those traumas dictate everything that happens from here on out. And somebody else says, even though that happened to me, I'm going to create a positive impact in the world. And they do. But some people really hang on to their stories and they get stuck there. And it's really unfortunate, because if we can help them break free from those stories, and it's not from a shame response or a have to, I mean, their power is right there.
Yeah.
Right. Even though, can you go into that?
Yeah. And listen, even though there were times where I got stuck in my story, right? And even though there were times that I got stuck in the trauma, right? I just think one of my lines from my document, from my declaration, is I'm brave enough to always come back to hope and possibility. And I think that's the hot pink ripples thing, is even though I love that you've caught that phrase, even though I might get stuck, I might go into it, I come back to, there is always hope and possibility. And I think probably for a long time that was subconscious, and part of my transformation and part of my journey has been bringing that into the conscious. And I know that a lot of clients that I work with, now, I've been coaching now for 6 years. The stuff's still going on, right? Life is still happening to me, right? As you said, it's like, no, everything's fine now. No, not at all, right? There's stuff going on all the time. And even though I will still show up in a way and that supports and serves others, and supports and serves me, even if I'm lose sight of that sometimes, that is just something that I have in my very being that comes very naturally to me. Going back to that thing about coming home, right? It's like it's always been there. Now, I've also experienced very many environments where I'm not loved and supported, both from a work perspective and a personal perspective. And some of them are still, around me. But guess what? Since I've shifted who I'm being and I allow more of that in my life, I show up a different way. Guess what? I'm surrounded by more and more people, who love and support me. That's why I'm here with you guys, but by who I'm being, even when I was stuck in some of the trauma or the story, there's enough hope and possibility for me that I always found a way to find something in what was going on and transmute it into something else. And I remember when I was with Steve, so I came over to Phoenix beginning of last year. It was my 50th year, and I created a Be With session with Steve as my 50th birthday present to myself, because I wanted to consciously create the next 50 years of my life, celebrate the 50 years I'd had, because they're not, they're amazing and incredible, and I wouldn't change them because that's who I am as well. But I wanted to really consciously create the rest of my next 50 years differently. And one of the things that Steve said to me when I was going through all my stories and my shame and my guilt and everything that I'd ever done wrong in my life, which is, the work that I did with him in that Be With session, which is quite unusual to do it in that space. But he invited me to go there, and I'd gone there going, I'm getting what I came for. And one of the things he said to me was, I can see all these things that you're telling me about, all these stories. We do love Mr. Steve Hardison. He said, and yet here you are, here with me today in this room. He said, so what about if we look at all of that differently? Because everything that you're sharing with me is exactly why we're here. It's another version of the even though, right? Yeah. Right? Everything that you're sharing with me, you're here with me now. We're having this conversation. And that was partly where Source's Pink Angel came from. It started as Steve's Pink Angel, and then he said he thought that might be a bit selfish. So
thanks for sharing, Steve.
He went from Steve to Source, right, very quickly, which he does so beautifully, right? But one of the reasons was, he said to me, he said, you're an angel. He said, and there must have been angels walking with you every step of the way, because all those things you've said and you've beat yourself up for and gone down all the rabbit holes that we know we go down, and we can keep going down about what could have happened. He said, and yet you are here, and look at how you show up in the world, and look at what you've created, and he said, you must have had angels walking all the way with you.
Yeah.
Again, that even though, as you say, just suddenly shifted from, staying in those rabbit holes in the dark, like what the hell and why did this happen? And this is suddenly I saw it as just like literally coming out in light and just going, yeah, I was guided, I was loved, I was supported because I'm here.
Brian, I'm going to throw you in the spotlight, bro. I'd love to
fine.
hear. I'd love to hear your thoughts around this, because I know you've done a lot of work as we've created the 12 journeys together. We've seen this time and time again where people are, stuck in their patterns, and they have their stories and narratives, and they've got to shift those. And it becomes that even though. I'd love to hear your view on that. Like, what are you hearing and seeing here?
Yeah, I just got back from a week-long trip, and it was a men's retreat, and it's with some brothers in my life that some of them I met for the first time on this trip, and they keep coming. We keep going back. We keep going back because it feels like home. I had an opportunity to really dive deep into myself, alone in nature. And sometimes that can be the scariest part of it all, is really slowing down and having a moment with yourself, because of all the judgments and all the stories and all those things come up, and sometimes you lose track of really who you are in here. And I'm going like this because who you really are is an amazing. There's no words really for who you are. You are a miracle. You are source. You are a god, a goddess. You are divine. You are everything. And when you can come to that space, it doesn't take away everything. It doesn't make everything just magically perfect, sunshine and rainbows and unicorns and lollipops and all the fun things in life. It doesn't just make it that, but it really dials in what's truly important. It helps to lower some of those shames and guilts. It helps open your eyes to your potential. It helps empower you when you slow down and have a conversation with yourself and really start to love who you are. And I think that's what Steve Hardison is masterful at, is helping people see their divine potential. He sees it. If you watch TBO LIT NFL, he shakes the living crap out of Chris Doris. If you go to YouTube and Google TBO LIT NFL, because he's like, if you knew who I was, you wouldn't ever ask me that question. Go watch it. It's powerful. And those are those moments where you start to recognize who you really are. Sometimes it can be through death, a tragedy, a separation, a stuck point where you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, and then you start going inward, which is exactly where you need to go.
Can
Then
I pull a quote in for you to tie in? Yeah.
Please.
I
can't lean into a microphone.
Yeah, no. But tie this in. Viktor Frankl says that when we're no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves.
Yeah.
And I hear that in what you're sharing. Do you want to continue? And
I'll be brief, because this is definitely not my show. This is exploring the hot pink ripples. But to tie into that, like, I got the chance again to slow down and see how much meaning making I do. How so much of it doesn't even matter, as the beautiful Emma Edwards told me in Birmingham. She actually said, it doesn't fucking matter, in her beautiful Scottish accent. All of these things that we put so much meaning into are probably the things that have very little to do with who we really are. And if we can slow down and identify those and see the hot pink ripples that we can create and the magic of it all, the oneness. I have a bracelet on actually, and this will be my last little bit till the end.
Until it's not. There's more.
Until there's more.
So yeah,
I got a bracelet from one of my friends, and this he picked it out for me on the trip. I asked him to pick out the bracelet, and he reached into his bag of bracelets because he loves to share with people, and it's pink, and it says, it's outlined in pink. It's hard to see in the blue, but it says, "Look within." And then there was a card that had a lotus flower on it as well. And sometimes that is the hardest journey to go into, but that is where all of the beauty lies, is within, and then it ripples out. When Rebecca found the beauty inside of her, which is if you all need to experience a Rebecca Shannon hug. That's my favorite part of going to Birmingham. I told Judy Thurston that the only thing that I'm really expecting is a hug from Rebecca Shannon. And the instant I got out of the taxi and walked into the hotel, who was there? Rebecca Shannon. That was the most beautiful part. What I didn't expect is the journey that started again of going within and expressing. And she started that in Birmingham in a magical way. So that's what I've got to share for the moment.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, it was an exceptional hug that we shared. It was a beautiful moment, as Ryan said there. Literally, I was at the hotel in Birmingham. We'd just come down the stairs, and these two guys arrived after quite a journey that they'd had to get to Birmingham, and that's part of that coming home, right? When that hug was a coming home. That hug was, and with Ryan and with Nick and with everyone else that I experienced that weekend. I mean, I walked into that room in Birmingham, and I was sharing with someone this weekend. It was home with 400 people, many of whom I've met and experienced in, not necessarily in person, but on Zoom and things. Some I have never met before, but I've never walked into a room and felt that at home. And I'd gone to the London experience a couple of years before, which was incredible. And my first experience of Steve and Amy and so many other people that were on there. But I hadn't gone on my not even my full journey, because the journey keeps going, right? But I hadn't gone deep enough to feel like that. It was amazing, but it felt new, and it felt exciting and all those things, but it didn't yet feel like home. Fast forward a couple of years, and I walk into Birmingham, and it was home in a way that I've never experienced in a room. And over the 2 days that we were all together, so much occurred. I mean, Nick Smith started it off, I think, by saying, "I'm going to crack open your heart right now." That kind of set the scene for the weekend, and then roll through all the amazing speakers, none of which I want to discount talking about, but because they were all incredible. But Nick opened it up with, "I want to crack open your heart." And then Martine Cannon finished it with, Nick cracked my heart open. I don't know what Martine did to it, really. I mean, it just expanded, cracked, broke,
exploded,
stayed open.
So big.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And actually, how I started my weekend with that gorgeous hug from Ryan, I was in pieces at this point with at the end of the weekend together, and Martine did this incredibly powerful talk, which I think is now available for people to see. I'd really encourage you to watch all of the talks, but specifically that one. And then just to really round off the weekend, they put Coldplay "Fix You" on, because that's not emotional at all, and won't help you. And at that point, I'm getting emotional talking about it. Just something occurred at that moment inside of me, and I knew I needed to be with Ryan. You know, I was crying, you know, and this makes it sound like an awful
Usually
weekend,
what
right?
you do when you cry. I'm a crier, so you just criers all get together.
Right, but I knew I needed to be with someone, you know, that I knew loved me. Now, up until that point that Ryan and I met on the Friday, Ryan and I had never even had a conversation, right? We hadn't, you know, I've tuned into many of these shows, so we'd experienced each other, but we hadn't actually ever had a conversation. That sense of home had been created by who we were both being in the world and how we experienced each other. So from the Friday when we first met and had that incredible connection through to, I just knew where I needed to be for that moment where I was experiencing the whole weekend in a moment, in that song, in what was being created in that weekend. And Ryan has obviously gone on a journey. We've exchanged many messages since. Ryan's gone on a journey within. I've gone on a journey within. I imagine every single person that was in that room with us has gone on a journey within. And Nick and you and I were talking about that earlier, weren't you? That's not an easy road to go on, right?
Can we create a segue for this?
Yeah.
That I hear that, you know, Ryan has unique gifts, talents that I don't have. You have the same. Every person has those. You know, Mark Twain says that the two best parts of life is when you're born and then when you discover why, right? And then another statement by Aristotle says that where your gifts and the world's needs intersect is where your purpose is. And I look at, you know, the ripples, the hot pink ripples, and I'd love for you to expound on this, is that, you know, each of us has the ability to make those ripples in the world, and we're going to do it in ways that nobody else can do. So where our unique talents and the world's needs come together, that's where we have impact. And Ryan was that unique tool, that unique impact that fit your need, and it intersected, and that's where purpose exploded, right?
Yeah.
And that's where the ripple was created. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, and yeah, I mean the hot pink ripples, I think, really started off as, I mean, pink's always been my kind of brand, and so I think the hot pink ripples, I think, was something someone just said to me one day that was like, oh yeah, that's who I am. Again, it's just like you say, when you're born and when you realize why you're here, and suddenly it comes together, and so many people then experience me that way. But the hot pink ripples are the way that we all show up in the world. And so, you know, by me being who I am and discovering who I am and then spreading out those hot pink ripples is the same for everybody else. They're not going to look like hot pink ripples to Ryan or to you or to anybody else. But we can choose how we are in the world, and we can spread love and joy, hot pink ripples, blue ripples, dimples. As Ryan said, I do have dimples as well. Right? Yeah. I do have dimples. You know, it's a choice, and so a lot of what when I say about working with clients, I don't think it's like I work with clients. You're going to think about my purpose on this earth, who I woke up to being, was by just being me. By just being me. And yes, you know, as a coach, I'm learning all the time. I'm learning with some of the best in the world in terms of coaching. You know, we've already mentioned Mr. Hardison, you know, worked with Steve Chandler, Gary Mailer, you guys, you know, incredible. The list is endless, but that's being created by who I'm being. That is part of the hot pink ripples that I've created in my life. Because every time I showed up and made a choice, made a decision to go and do something, to have a conversation, to read a book, to see a post on Instagram, anything, these tiny things that occur in our lives, every time I choose something that is aligned with who I am, guess what? I create the next thing. I create the next thing. I create those ripples. You know, we talk about it as ripples. We talk about it as the butterfly effect. And it's all coming from who I choose to be. And so when I'm working with people, if you want to call it that, is I'm pointing them back to who they are, who you are amongst them. I don't need to put you there, Ryan. You are there. You are there. That's what I'm inviting other people into, is remembering that we get to create all of this. After Birmingham, my friend who's staying with me this week, a lovely lady called Kate, couldn't come to Birmingham with us, right? And she couldn't come to Birmingham with us. But after Birmingham, Steve put out this post about he wanted to just stay with a family, stay somewhere rather than booking into a hotel. And because of who I am, because of how I've shown up in the world, because of how I have, went to see Steve in Phoenix, created my relationship with him, etc. I saw this post at exactly the right time. And I rang my friend Kate and said, how do you feel about Steve Hardison coming to stay? She was at the final destination he was going to. And Steve ended up staying with her for 48 hours. I created magic and miracles that you couldn't create any other way for someone who I was praying for magic and miracles for my friend Kate, and created this unbelievable experience. That's how I show up and create hot pink ripples in the world. And everyone has the possibility to do that. It's whether we slow down and see it and notice it and own it. So Steve and Kate still talk a lot. And, it's every time Steve and Kate talk, Kate's like, oh my gosh, when you came to say, Steve, so much got created and my son's experienced this and this has happened and this has happened. And he always points her back to, whoa, hang on. This was a co-creation. How you showed up. Not everyone would have showed up even in that experience the way that you and your sons did, how Rebecca showed up in it. All of us have this choice of how open we can be. And Nick, when you created Birmingham for us and said, I'm going to crack open your heart, you also invited us into, we've got to be willing to go there. We've got to be willing to open up, to see what's possible. And that comes again from what Ryan was saying about, that journey within. It's being willing to go there enough so that we know ourselves well enough to know that we can open up, that we can deal with it, that we can create from it, that we can be exactly who we are without trying to not be who we are, because that's bloody exhausting, I've found over the years, right? It's much easier to just be who I am. And that was a very long answer to your question.
No, that's perfect.
I remember what the question was.
That's perfect. It's about making the impact we can make.
There we go.
It's unique to each of us. And even though things have happened in life, we each have a chance to really determine our pathway. And I think it was Carl Jung that talked about, our purpose is found in our shadows. Those things we struggle with are often the things that we develop skills and tools around that are the tools that we'll use to impact the world. Because I wouldn't be who I am today without the challenges. You wouldn't be you. Ryan wouldn't be Ryan. And we're unique. What's interesting is we're both in coaching with Lindsay Kapp right now. And Lindsay's powerful and she's very direct. If you've ever had a conversation, if you really want to know what she's thinking, she'll tell you. Don't worry. Yeah. And it'll be blunt and clear, and you won't have any question of what's on her mind, but it's very powerful because it gets right to the point. And one thing that we've discovered is, when we created the 12 journeys and Wake Up with Giants TV, they were co-creations, and sometimes you lose yourself in the co-creation. But the reality is that Ryan is a unique individual with his own set of gifts and skills, and we created a product together, right? A program together. I have my own unique set of skills that he doesn't have. And those are my gift to the world, and you have yours. And so I think often we try and fit into this mold of something we think we are, and that's not us. We're just trying to fit this creation, and that's not really us. And so I think it gives permission, having that conversation with Lindsay is she really clarifies, look, you've got your own brand. Ryan has his own brand. Rebecca, Shannon, you've got your own brand. It's uniquely yours. Other people are going to have their own version of that. And that's what we really need to pay attention to. Like your ripple, whether it's pink, blue, green, anything else, is uniquely yours. And that's what I'm hearing in what you just shared. Yeah.
And we all have it, right?
Yeah.
We all, it's not, and again, Steve has pointed all of us to this. It is, we are all unique, and in that we are all the same. It's, we all have this within us. We all have, which, going back to where I started about when we were born, we are divine, perfect beings. And we are today, and we all have this power within us to create exactly who we are in the world, in all our unique ways. But that is the same for all of us. There is nobody who doesn't have that available to them. And, you know, we were joking earlier about forgiveness, you know, and that's been a very big part of my journey. Ryan, by the way, we were just joking about the fact that if you hadn't shown up today, I would never have ever forgiven you.
Ever.
Ever.
I wouldn't have been able to show my face ever
again.
Yeah.
But that again is one of the things that we've learned is this all of this work, and being able to show up as ourselves comes with an inordinate amount of forgiveness for ourselves, for every time we haven't been who we are, for every time we haven't been who we want to be, for every time we've shown up in a way that we don't want to show up with. Because as you know, Nick, you said at the beginning as well, you know, we've all lived a life, and often it's not a life that we would now choose to live. And we have hurt people, we've hurt ourselves, we've let others down, we've let ourselves down. And I still do it. You know, this is a journey that keeps going. You know, whenever I talk to people, I'm like, you know, it's not all hot pink ripples and unicorns and candy floss, right? You know, in my life, there's quite a lot of candy floss, but, you know, there's not all of that all the time. And also, I don't get it right all the time. I'm not preaching to you. You know, this is a true experience for me too. Like, I'm still living it. And Ryan, when you were sharing about your, you know, you go back with your guys because it's still occurring. You know, I've learned that we make up meaning about stuff. Does that mean I don't ever make up meaning about stuff? No, of course it doesn't. I still do that. And then I have to clean it up. It was Gary Mailer and Raghav who were on stage in Birmingham who were talking about it's cleaning up constantly, right? You know, if you have a home, you live in it. Right. You know, people come and go and you eat food and you have parties or whatever it is you're doing. Right. Have people to stay, share your space with people, and then you clean it. Right. I get someone else to come in and clean it mostly, but I do try.
If only we could do that with our own personal journey. Right.
Well, exactly. Could somebody just come in here, just give it a clean up? Right. That's a good idea, Ryan. But yeah, you know, it's a constant job. Right. It's a constant cleaning to keep our world, our environment, the way we want it to be. And that's an external environment and an internal environment. And that's a journey that will never end for me. Now I'm conscious of it. So I'm going to have to keep cleaning up. I'm probably going to have to forgive myself a few more times. I'm probably going to get it wrong because I'm human. Some of the best coaches in the world that I've worked with I've shared something with them. And I think you might have done this as well, Nick, actually, when we had one of our conversations and I'm like this and this and this. And you're like, yeah, you're human. Right. So
I have to be careful not to shut people off in their sharing, you know, but at the same time, that's what serves. It's like, as a coach, you're very aware of where people get stuck in their stories. And they look for validation and confirmation of that story. And my goal is not to have you be stuck in your story. Like that's the hardest part, is knowing when to say, I hear you. I love you. I appreciate you. There's space for this. And we're going to stop that, you know?
Yeah. And that's the whole thing is you'll start to be more aware of what's been dictating how you're showing up, and then you can shift it and shift and shift. The difference between somebody like a Steve Hardison and a Ryan Morris is time, experience, and then using the tools that he's gathered throughout the years to then shift and shift and shift. And now it's probably down to micro shifts instead of, you know, like these big massive shifts that take you, you know, out of the ball game for 6-8 months, a year, 2 years, 10 years. Now it's, I've seen this is happening. This is how I am. And now, okay, there's something to do differently. And Steve Hardison will be the first one to admit that. He got angry in India at somebody in a hotel and then was like, oh, shift. And then cleaned up. It is housekeeping.
Yeah, it is housekeeping. Yeah, you missed the whole bit about cleaning. So
Nick went to go clean. He was like, I'll be right back.
Yeah, the house is a bit of a mess. Needs to go and clean.
He's over there vacuuming.
Yeah. This is who Nick is in the world. He's being exactly what we're talking about, right? So I wanted to pick up on something that you said there, Ryan, about like the micro shifts, right? I'm carefully saying shifts there, right?
Yeah.
We get
There's
the
micro shifts and the micro shifts, and they're
we get the
tied. You know.
I remember when I was in that one of many organizations that I shared with you, where I learned to be a coach, and I did their coaching program, and then I did their leadership program for a year. And I remember in one of my one-to-one sessions with my wonderful coach at the time, Margaret, and I could see everyone around me making these mega shifts in their life, right? You know, and I mean, there was some pretty big stuff going on in my life, but I chose to not see it that way. But I felt comparisonitis, you know, they're doing bigger things. They've created a charity. They've changed this. They've done this, all of this sort of thing. And I was kind of getting a bit caught up in that in my story. And she very gracefully stopped me in my tracks and went, can we look at the things that you have done? Because they were the small things that weren't that small, right? They were the very small things that were creating the shifts that are still with me today. And she could see that. I couldn't, because it wasn't big enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't, you know, pink enough at that point, right? It was like I wanted the big bang, but actually what I was doing was creating these tiny, tiny little shifts in who I was being. And again, we didn't really use that language then, but the shifts in who I was being that would change the trajectory of my life much more powerfully than if I'd gone for the big bang, right? Because the big bang might have taken me away from, you know, again, that real inner journey of who I was being. And one of the choices I made in that, which I did know was a big choice, but came with a lot of micro choices, was I chose to not drink. That was the big bang, but it didn't look like the big bang when I just made that choice to, you know, to choose me was how I never said I gave up alcohol. I chose me, right? I chose me. And that has been the biggest shift I have ever made in my life. It's the thing I'm most proud of. It's the thing that was the easiest shift to make once I decided to do it. It took me about 30 years to make the choice, but you know, when I did, it was really easy, literally really easy, and was the biggest bang that could have ever occurred in my life. So I really think, and you know, people watching, people that I speak to, people that you speak to, and in your program, you know, this is the tiny details that do need paying attention, and they are so much bigger than they might appear. And our stories can take us out of that, because we want the big shiny thing that's going to go out there in the world and everyone can see how much we've shifted and changed, and it looks big. Is come back to like those small, so significant changes in every little thing you do, in every interaction you have, that is actually going to produce a bigger bang than you could even dream of.
What a wonderful way to get towards the end of the show, where it brings it right back into the giants and the smalls. Giants take small steps. They're bigger. You know, they still take small steps, and it's those. Thank you, Carrie. Oh, I love you so much. By the way, you're an amazing human being. Yeah, and it's you just take those small steps, and the ripples that occur from that will bless your life forever. You can lean on those. You can shift and shift and shift and shift. And you'll look back in a year or 2 years, 3 years, and you won't even almost recognize that person that you were then, because you've made so many shifts and grown and stretched that it just doesn't even fit you anymore. The house doesn't fit you the way
and also I think, you know, one of those minute things, and we all talk about this, I know we do, is our language. You know, another great coach that I've had the pleasure of working with, JP Morgan, you know, talks about the hiccups and burps. You know, those, you know, every time we say those words about ourselves, every time we, you know, we make ourselves small, every time we say something about ourselves that's not who we are. So it can even be, you know, it can be, and I know we all do a lot of work around this, in the words we choose. You can get down to that. The words you choose to say about yourself and others makes such a difference. And again, people often are looking for I talk about it as the silver bullet, right? I have the pink bullet, but people are looking for the silver bullet, something outside of themselves that will change all of this stuff, that will give them the big bang. But actually the silver bullet is us, and how we are and what we say and what we be. And the only person that can do that is us. But it starts with the smaller things, and often we can get distracted by the big, bright, shiny things out there that look great. Yeah. When I was with Steve, and I know, and Nick, we talked about this earlier about foundations, building the foundations through your program of what then people can then do on those foundations, right, and how important they are. And it's a great time for me to reiterate, go and have a look at those programs with Nick and Ryan and go and talk to them about it. Slip in the DMs, right? Is when I was with Steve and we'd had our time together, which is a whole other story, which is in the book Journey of Riches, Elevating Your Life. If you want to read about me becoming a pink angel, I'd love you to read that. But one of the things at the end of our time together, I'd already ordered my Uber to come and pick me up, and Steve suddenly said, "Wait, there's something I want to do." And we went out to the Uber, and he said to the Uber driver, "Can you wait for this lady? There's something I need to show her." And the Uber driver was a bit grumpy. So Steve said, "She'll pay you $1 a minute." I'm like, God, I hope this isn't going to take long then, Steve. Or this is going to rack up my bill. And he said it won't take long. And he took me off down his road to a house that from the street looked amazing. Where Steve lives, beautiful houses, looked absolutely incredible. And he strode off across the garden. Funny story. So he strode off across the garden, taking his giant steps, and I'm running along behind him. I'm only little tiny steps in my brand new trainers that I bought for the occasion of going to Steve that matched my dress, which is actually this dress that I wore because I wore it in honor today. So I have my little trainers on, brand new white trainers. So as he's bounding across, he doesn't step in the muddy puddle, does he? But I do. I do. So my new trainers, muddy, but I just carried on running after him. And what he was showing with me was that behind the beautiful street that all the street could see, the house had been built on bad foundations. Go around the back, right? It was falling away, right? And he said to me, he said, "This is the frosting on dog poop that he talks about," right? He was showing me, and I'm not sure I even understand. I understand it more every time I tell the story, every time I share it, every time I think about it. And I spend a lot of time going back into my time with Steve because there's so much more in there for me that I haven't still experienced. But he was very powerfully showing me that the foundations need to be in place before we look at what's out there in the world, right? What the pink shininess. And I think he was, in his wonderful, gorgeous way, showing me that, yes, I am showing up in the world, bright, pink, shiny, candy floss, and all of that. And I will continue to, because that is who I am. And keep working on the foundations. Keep building the solid foundations, because otherwise this will all fall away at some point. And so
Rebecca, as we wrap up here, tying that in, I want you to pull that into a final message for the viewer. Like what would you share with them? And you can include that or pull something else in as a final message to them.
Okay. I want to pull back something you shared earlier, because I think it was really powerful.
Yeah.
The even though, right? Even though, wherever you've come from, whatever your experience of life is, even though all of that, you can build the foundations. You can build the foundations. Go and find people to help you build the foundations. Go and find people who love and care and support you and who see you for who you are. Because in this environment that I'm in, you guys, the world that I'm creating for myself, that has been the most powerful foundation. And then just show up as who you are. Allow all your true colors to come out, whatever color they are. And keep coming back to who you are and keep showing up in the world. And as Steve says to me, he said, just keep showing up as you are in the world and everything will be okay.
No, I like that. Ryan, final thoughts?
Just like how much I love Rebecca Shannon, which I love her more than fishing. She tells me that she loves me more than pink. Which obviously means the world to her as well. I hope you can take that message that Rebecca has talked about today. Slow down, go within, and start to see how beautiful and amazing you are, and start letting those hot pink ripples just flow from you and express from you, because that is what creates miracles. That is what creates impact. That is what we're waiting for in the world, is for you. And Rebecca Shannon has shown me that. And I love her so much. So thank you, Rebecca, for coming on today and for being that hot pink ripple that I need in my world.
I love you, Ryan.
That's awesome. Thank you, guys. As we finalize here, for those that are watching, check out her website, go to complimentcoaching.com. And Rebecca has a way that's going to serve you that only she can do. I can't do it. Ryan can't do it. And you'll know if that's right for you by listening to this message, because you'll know where you resonate, and you'll know that her tools and talents and skills and abilities and purpose are what you need for your world to get better. And so if that speaks to you, you need to reach out to her. Just follow that link and reach out to her and have a conversation. I promise it'll change your life because of where you're coming from. That's the big difference is, if a coach is out there to get something from you, you'll know immediately. And that's not what Rebecca's about. She's out to serve you. And there may be a fee tied to that. That's in service as well, and sometimes it's free and sometimes it's not. And it's all in service. That's what I know about you. So thank you for sharing so deeply your journey. Thank you for opening up to us and giving us of your hospitality. We shared cabs together. We got to hug you. We got to spend time with you in Birmingham. You're a beautiful human being, and you are creating a giant hot pink ripple in the world. I already know that. And
turns out there is more than one way to skin a cat.
There is. And for everybody that's watching, we appreciate you. Thank you for being on with us. And thank you for sharing this with people. Somebody that needs this message right now, send it to them. Tell them why, and tell them what you heard for them or why it's important to you. But share it. That's a big thing. And for heaven's sake, come subscribe to our YouTube channel. We could use your support there. And we have hundreds of videos just like this that are powerful, that will show you a way of being a giant in the world. And so we are committed to commitment. We are committed to resilience, and we're committed to courage in everything that we do. And we try and demonstrate that in ourselves and in our programs. And so we hope you'll come join us someday in one of our programs. At a minimum, come join the Tribe of Giants on Facebook, where we have a huge community of 4,200 members globally that are ready to support you as well. Is there anything else to share today, guys?
Just that I love you. Just that I love you. I love both of you. You've both served me so powerfully in ways that you don't even know, and some that you do. And yeah, just come and join this tribe would be my message to everyone here, because having those people around you and that kind of love and support is something I hadn't experienced to this degree. And it is beyond powerful when you find it. So if anything resonates with any of us, go find this tribe. Thank you. All right, guys, that's it. That's a wrap. So we love you. We want you to go make it a giant day, and we will see you in the next episode.
Love you too.